Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Hey, Court.
Hey, Steph.
How you doing?
I'm good. It's cold outside.
It is freezing.
I know.
The wind
Austin,
is crazy.
They say every year February is the coldest month. And then we sort of get into February and we get some 70-degree weather. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's January. And yet, here we are, end of February, coldest temperatures of the year.
I actually start putting my jackets in the dry cleaner bag.
I mean, truly, you're sort of ready. I think we even hit an 80-degree day this month.
It's wild.
And you think it's done, and then nope. Surprise, surprise.
Can't predict.
I know.
Well, later today, we're going to be escaping into ATX Kids Club.
Oh, fun.
Yes. They empower kids through educational field trips that explore Austin's history, culture, and outdoors, primarily getting there through CapMetro.
CapMetro. Charlotte's done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter.
Awesome.
I know.
Didn't know that.
When she was 5 years old. And I think my family was thinking, are you crazy? You're going to send your 5-year-old on CapMetro in Austin? I was like, I think this is awesome.
I love that.
And she loved it. I know. Little 5-year-old.
We know 3 young men who have volunteered there and loved it.
Yeah. It's a great, great program.
Good. Okay. But first,
tell me.
Topic that matters is government responsibility, which is very relevant at the moment.
Government responsibility in giving and nonprofit and philanthropic efforts. Yep, I'm with you.
The reason, of course, this is relevant is because there's a lot of changes being made in the current administration. Most notably, and we'll see if things change by the time this show releases, because things are changing every day.
Yep.
But the U.S. Agency for International Development, or the USAID, that is on pause. This was a program established by John F. Kennedy in 1961. Do you know about the story behind this?
No. Tell me.
Okay.
Yep.
So John F. Kennedy had read the 1958 novel, The Ugly American, which critiqued American diplomats for their arrogance around foreign policy and diplomacy. He was so influenced and impacted by this book, he shared it with his senator colleagues and had them all read it. And then he established the USAID. And the USAID provides effective aid to developing nations. But besides that, all of the aid that is being sent to these developing nations has, this is aid of the United States. But it does more than just help those beneficiaries, right? So it does a lot of things. It benefits national security, addresses poverty and instability in other countries, which reduces the appeal of extremist ideologies. It spurs on economic interest, open new markets for American goods and services, and there's a global influence. So it enhances America's what's known as soft power.
Yeah.
You've heard of soft power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Builds alliances, right?
Right.
And the interesting that's been coming out recently is how Beijing may want to fill in this gap, which will strengthen their geopolitical position.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very complex. I've actually listened to a lot of journalists talk about the USAID and how they hadn't spoken with someone who didn't believe there should be a reform, that they were frustrated by certain elements of USAID, but not a single one of them wanted to dismantle it.
Right.
And are pretty terrified of them no longer being able to help with humanitarian aid. And most of us don't truly grasp those consequences. That's foreign aid. I want to talk a little bit more domestic. Do you know how much nonprofits receive in government aid through contracts and grants?
Like a dollar value?
Let's say a percentage.
A percentage of their budget, of their operating budget?
Let's do 2 things.
All right, I'm ready. Give me number 1.
One is, out of all nonprofits, how many of them receive some type of government funds?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to say sub 50%. I'm going to say 35%.
68%.
Really?
Yeah.
That's shocking. Okay.
It is.
And government could be from your local county. It could be from your...
It could. That's right. It's not solely federal.
That's true.
And out of all nonprofit revenue, how much do you think is government subsidized?
And are you looking for a percentage?
Yes.
There? Okay. Well, now that I know this,
this is all nonprofit revenue.
I mean, I would imagine that the majority is still private.
29%.
Yeah.
29% is government funded.
Yeah.
Significant influence. A little bit higher than I actually thought.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But you know better than I do.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that over 60% of nonprofits are receiving some type of aid. And yet what that tells us is the percentile of their actual budgets, whatever that aid is going towards, is actually quite small.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
so, yes, it's there, but the privatization of those funds is actually keeping those nonprofits open, not necessarily governmental funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something else that I found interesting looking at other countries.
Yes.
Yeah. So countries spend a certain percentage of their GDP on social welfare.
Yeah.
Where do you think the United States ranks? These
But-
are all developed countries.
Right. Yeah. And we're not talking about healthcare. We're talking about social.
Social welfare includes,
I mean, do you think like Medicaid and
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
It does
Okay.
include
All
these
right.
programs.
Okay. And yet, I mean, we know so many developed countries that have fully paid healthcare
Yes.
for theirs. So I'm gonna go. Let's rank us 72nd.
no, 21st.
Really?
Yeah.
That's better than I thought.
Yeah. So 18.7% of the United States GDP is spent on social welfare, which
Okay.
ranks us at 21. Care to give a guess who number one is?
Somewhere in Europe,
That's
Western
right.
Europe.
France.
Yeah.
31% of their GDP is spent on social welfare. We're behind Spain, Portugal, Japan, Finland, UK, Poland, Europe.
Canada.
You know what? I don't know where Canada lies. Oh, I don't see that on my list.
That's okay. Apparently, we're buying Canada, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's coming soon.
So we'll get the benefit of that. Yeah.
Also interesting is per capita. So instead of as a percentage of GDP per capita, US is ranked number 10
Okay.
behind
Sure.
the same countries, pretty much.
The same countries.
Most developed nations invest 20 to 30% of their GDP on social welfare programs. And we know that this benefits society, right?
Opposites. Yeah.
Reduces poverty,
Yeah.
advances education. That
Yes.
advancement in education spurs economic growth,
Correct.
and the list goes on. What are your thoughts?
Like you said, the shift in the administration, there's clearly two things are coming across. First, less domestic assistance and aid, as we're seeing with U.S. aid, and involvement, I think, not just from a social perspective, but I think we're also seeing it in conflict in other areas where we've become very insular towards the U.S. and what the U.S. needs, as opposed to thinking about other countries, to your point, for getting some of the secondary and tertiary benefits. What we're also seeing is less involvement on the home front, leaving those nonprofits to their own in terms of fundraising, or as we're seeing with, for example, DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, withholding those funds if certain conditions aren't being met. So more reliance on the privatization of fundraising and nonprofits having to, just due to the volatile atmosphere and environment when it comes to whether or not you're going to be supported depending on who's in office, I think you're really going to have to minimize your reliance on any type of government assistance, especially if you want to take your particular nonprofit in one direction that may not be consistent with the administration's agenda. We're going to see a lot more reliance on individuals stepping up and family foundations and other sources, because I think the reliance on government just can't be there anymore.
Yeah, hopefully that philanthropy gender gap
Yes.
with women.
Yes. So we're going to have to see individuals
Yeah.
step up more and women step up more, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know anyone who says that the government is efficient. Have you ever heard someone say that the government's really efficient?
Well, no, but are you going to talk about Doge now?
No. No. But
Yes.
my point is,
Yeah.
we both work for for-profit companies, and we both have a
Correct.
history of working for-profit
Yes.
companies. A lot of for-profit companies also have waste and are inefficient.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not saying that there's not waste and that there can't be transformative
Right.
policy-making decisions. But what I am saying is that waste is not uncommon.
That's correct.
And if you ask anyone who's worked at Google, I guarantee you they'll say that there's waste and there's
course.
bloat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's unfair when someone says, oh, well, I don't want the government involved because
Right.
they're inefficient.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common reaction I get from quite a few people.
Well, I guess that's probably the argument in support of all of these cutting measures. But I think what you'll see in nonprofit, they are the leanest organizations, right? They can't afford not to be lean. Google could learn from these nonprofit organizations. And so that is not where the cutting should happen. If you don't believe that it is worthy of the government's, the whatever 25% that the US has given of its GDP. I think you should actually take the time to research what those organizations are doing because nobody else is doing it. The government's not doing it. They're helping fund it because someone else has committed themselves to it. To your point, it's short-sighted. And I think one of the consequences of this is you're going to see nonprofits have to consolidate, very similar to what we saw in the demographic cliff. And we're actually having to see small universities are closing across the country because the enrollment's just not there, because the demographic's not there. We lost this big chunk of a generation. So you're seeing consolidations on the higher academic level. I think you're going to start seeing consolidation over the next 8 years. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, because along with that, you will see lost services and therefore lost people. I mean, people who will not be beneficiaries of this type of work anymore. Even USAID, I was watching a story on it, and I think they were in South Africa, and they interviewed an individual who was walking up to the clinic, and they said,
Yes.
"Where are you going?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to the clinic." The clinic's closed. That's a USAID clinic, and I have nowhere else to go now. I don't know what to do. So those people will be lost. They'll be lost. And that's really sad.
Yeah, in a lot of these countries, we've helped them enough where we've become a beneficiary of these countries and the resources that they have. So when you hear that Beijing wants to fill in the gap, do you think Beijing's doing this out of the goodness of their heart?
Beijing's not dumb. Yeah. Yeah.
So it really makes you think a lot more than what I've ever had to think of with government involvement and giving. That's, of course, foreign humanitarian aid, but it begs the question, what cost cutting is going to be had closer to home? Thanks so much, Courtney.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steph.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Hi, we are here to escape into ATX Kids Club, and we have Tammy Miller, the founder and executive director. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
So I want to hear all about ATX Kids Club and a little bit about the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So the overwhelming mission for ATX Kids Club is that we want to spark kids' natural curiosity. And what we do is we take them out on these field trip adventures that are focused on building their confidence, teaching them resiliency, making sure that they've got a sense of independence, and learning how to access the city of Austin in a way that a lot of organizations don't do, which is by public transit. And so that's the biggest part of ATX Kids Club, which is integrating CapMetro, our public transit system, into getting around Austin. And while we are year-round and we do offer field trip adventures all year, and some of which we use our vans because we want to make sure that kids know about the Central Texas region, our largest program does integrate riding on public transit while they explore the city of Austin, learning how to pivot when things don't work out, and building stamina because they're carrying their backpacks and doing a lot of walking. It's all about just making sure that kids believe in themselves and that they truly can do anything.
Yes. And as a kid, I loved summer camp, and I feel like they are fantastic for building friendships, confidence, and of course, having that relationship and that partnership with CapMetro provides a whole nother layer of independence and learning how to get around Austin, which is incredible. And then talking about getting around Austin, there's 4 primary parks that kids meet up before you head out for your adventure.
Yeah. So what we do is we try real hard to the best of our ability to create convenient locations based on the size of Austin. Garrison Park is our South Austin meetup spot. And then we do Peace Park because it's very central.
Love Peace.
The new Peace Park is gorgeous.
Incredible.
And then Brentwood and Branch Park, which is 2 different parks in the North Central, if you will. But we need to make sure that those park locations have access to public transit. and they have access to bathrooms and a playground. So trying to find parks that meet all of those requirements can limit the number of parks that we're able to find.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Branch is Mueller. Is
It
that
is.
correct?
It's in the Mueller area. That's right. Exactly. It's 2 blocks from the Thinkery.
Oh,
Yep.
I don't know if it's CapMetro. What is the train?
So it's the Metro Rail.
That is the Metro
It
Rail.
is.
Funny story. So one of my closest friends, her son was turning 4, super into trains, and she got everyone tickets where we all got on the Metro Rail and literally went like 4 stops, got out, walked for a minute, and then hopped back on. He just wanted to ride it.
Of course.
So these children
Right.
really love public transportation, and
They do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a birthday party. It was great.
That is phenomenal. Yeah. And that's the feedback that we get, honest to goodness, is that if you ask any of our kids, over 96% of the kids are going to tell you that their favorite part of ATX Kids Club is that they get to ride on the bus. That's an important thing to understand about ATX Kids Club, which is it's not always about our destination. It's about the journey, right? And I think that in life, we often have to stop and slow down and recognize that it's not always about our destinations, but it's about how did we get there and what did that look like and how did that feel? And those are the things that I think really resonate with the kids, is that they are out in a great big wide world. They're not riding in their car. They're being exposed to what is real life. And I think that they really find that to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And encourages people to use public transportation, which isn't used enough in Central Texas.
That is correct.
So just for an environmental impact and,
sustainability
yes.
of our city and trying to have less cars on the road is really, really important. It's truly a mind shift. And when I started ATX Kids Club, that was one of the thoughts that I had, which is that it's really hard to convince adults to change patterns of behavior.
Yes.
Right. However, if you talk with children and you start to do patterns of behavior when they're young, or you teach them these skills so that way they can use these skills when they're old enough to do it on their own, that's my hope, is that the future generations haven't already established that pattern of always getting in the vehicle in order to get to all of the places. And what we've done is we've created an entire camp of over 2,000 kids that have participated that now know how to get from these 4 different park locations to downtown. And our city needs that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then even if you ever have the opportunity to be able to travel to areas where public transportation is the main form of transportation, there's been times where I'm overwhelmed and wish I maybe had used public transportation more growing up. So fantastic opportunity.
Absolutely. Washington, D.C. is the perfect example where you do not want to have a car.
Right.
Right.
So let's switch gears a little bit and we want to dive into the numbers, the impact report. I know you have a few programs today. Do you want to speak a little bit about each of those?
Yeah, the summer camp program is our largest program. We have approximately 100 kids that participate over the course of the summer every week. And that is a weekly sign up. We do it by theme. That way kids can really dive a little deeper into certain areas that they're interested in. For instance, one theme would be like nature and environment, where another theme would be arts, music, culture. We do a diversity week, a serve week, which is volunteerism based. They get to go and actually do a project for a different nonprofit every day. So that program is definitely the largest program that we run. Then we do school holidays. So we have a couple school holidays coming up, and some of our kids are going to go crux climbing. Other kids are going to go to the LBJ Ranch. And they're just a lot of fun because it gets kids out and about instead of sitting at home on a screen, and engages their brain. All the reasons, right?
Yep. Oh, and the listeners know I love to throw the stats out there on screen time. I mean, I can't remember, but something like 8.5 hours for teenagers. Preteens, it's 5.5 hours a day. Half of that being television or YouTube. So get them out.
Right. And we are electronics free, and that's really important to me. Obviously, we use our phones as a tool in order to make sure that we can figure out bus routes and things of the sort that are valid. But outside of that, kids don't bring electronics. And then we are doing a parents' night out. Another program we run is our teen leadership program. And that one is really exciting. It's different than camp because it is engaging teenagers starting at age 13 through 17. And what we ask of them is that they actually have to apply. So there's an application and an interview, because what we want is we want want to make sure that it is the teenager that recognizes what we're doing and what the responsibilities are going to be, and not the parent that's just saying, oh, I think this is what you should be doing this summer, right?
I'm one of those parents. But yeah.
And so it is. It's very competitive. We've got a lot of teens that absolutely love doing that program. They have to commit a minimum of 2 weeks of their summer to being with us, and they work right alongside our seasonal staff, and they learn leadership skills as they're working with our 4 to 10-year-old group of kids. And that has just been one of our best programs, because what we're doing is we're cultivating leaders that then are able to become our seasonal staff as they've gone through the program.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So largest program, of course, summer camp, whereas CapMetro, we've got school holidays, we have after school activities, which is just once a week with one school today.
Right now, yep.
And then parents' night out activities, and lots of great opportunities for adventures, to get out, to work with nonprofits, right? So really fun. And I think to date, how many children have you served?
Over 2,200.
2,200, and I think 11 years old.
Yes, exactly. It's our 11th birthday, May 15th. And so this will be our 12th summer.
Congrats.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, time flies.
It's crazy. Yeah.
A lot of children served, and a small full-time staff, right? It's just yourself and one other.
It's myself and my program manager.
Yes.
We wear a lot of different hats on a daily basis.
Of course.
To be able to make sure that we keep the doors open and keep things moving forward. And then we do hire 8 additional seasonal staff over the summertime. And a lot of those summer staff will help us throughout the course of the year with our school holidays or other adventures that we're doing.
That's great. And just give some listeners, if they have children, it's 4 years old
to 13.
To 13.
And then 7 to 10 is our most popular age group.
When you look at some of these summer camps and everything that they do, including ATX Kids Club, it's a lot of work, right? So much is being built during these camps with the children. Just so much benefit is coming out of it. What I'm trying to get at is, I think we recognize teachers often, and we don't recognize them enough compensation-wise. Okay, that's another story.
Another interview.
But I think a lot of parents can come to appreciate, and in social media and everywhere, we talk about teachers need more recognition. But camp leaders, I don't think that they get enough recognition either. It's a hard job. So
it's a very hard job.
Yeah,
it really is.
Man, some of my best memories have been summer camps.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I often talk about how there were seeds that were sown throughout my lifetime that led me to where I am today. And so as I reflect back, it totally makes sense that I'm running this organization that is field trip based and that includes public transit and all the things that we do. It totally makes sense to me, because my best memories of being a child were field trips.
Yes.
Like anything that you asked me about my elementary school, I can tell you all about the field trips that we went on, right?
Field trips, camps, adventures, anything where you got to kind of get out of the school and go do something fun.
That's exactly right. I do think that we have a large amount of people that do recognize the work that goes into making sure that we do our jobs well, but it is definitely not easy. I don't think anybody ever goes into starting a nonprofit because they're looking for easy.
Right.
It's not about easy. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a great segue to switch gears and hear a little bit about stories that connect us to ATX Kids Club. I know you have an origin story of why you decided to start ATX Kids Club. We'd love to hear about that.
So all my life, I wanted to be a school teacher. I'm definitely one of those kids that, had the little classroom set up as a child and was the school teacher. And it was never something that I strayed too far from. While I did spend about 5 years in corporate America, I did come back to teaching in a classroom. And first grade was my heart. Those 5 and 6-year-olds definitely are where I find the most connection in working with them and helping with those types of things. So as I said, there's been all these little seeds that have sort of led me down a pathway of impact, right? And I think that, again, if you talk to any school teachers go into education because they want to make impact, right?
Yes.
They want to make sure that kids have opportunity, have the resources, have all that they need so that they can be their very best self. And I got frustrated in the public education system for so many reasons. I just wasn't finding that we had enough resources in the Title I school that I was working at. And I knew that what I needed to do was something different. It took a little bit of thought, but it just all came about that I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these kids that I taught school to, and we're going to figure out how to do a summer camp, take them on the public bus. And that was truly a combination of reasons. Number one was it's really expensive to try to figure out transportation with children. right?
Yeah.
So what's a good option? Well, a good option is you put them on a public bus with you, and then you can get and go and do everything and anything within the city of Austin. And so that's what we did. And from there, that was an amazing experience in 2014 with a lot of kids that loved me and trusted me, and families that equally understood who I was because I was their kid's either school teacher or I was their principal, but they knew me. And so despite the fact that we often would be very late coming back because we would miss a bus,
That happens.
it
That's life.
did. It truly did. Yes. And so that summer was the kickoff to try to figure out, okay, now the kids are going back to school. What does this look like for ATX Kids Club? Where do we go from here? And so over the course of time, we've developed into finding other opportunities to make sure that kids are not sitting home behind those screens, but rather are able to get out and about and explore and be a part of this amazing Central Texas region. And then I do have a couple of stories that connect ATX Kids Club. The most monumental story and experience that I had working with my kids was we were taking a field trip to Crow's Nest Farm, which is one of my favorite places to take kids. And we were leaving our southeast school, heading up I-35 so that we could get onto 290 heading east. And as we were doing that, obviously the city skyline was in front of us. One of the kids on the bus kept hollering out to try to get my attention. And I was like, well, what is going on? What is it? And the response was, do you see all those tall buildings? And I said, well, yeah. Is that Austin? And it just struck me that first grader had never seen the city skyline and had never been in the heart of Austin. And I just think that's a tragedy. And every kid should have the opportunity to experience Austin. It's an amazing city that we live in.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's impactful. And you realize you think it's so simple, right? You just get in your car, you just head out there, you're downtown. Yeah. It's just amazing how many people don't get to actually experience Austin.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If you really break it down and start to think about it, that was that eye-opening moment for me to realize that when you're a child in a family that is struggling to make ends meet on a daily basis, that family is not going to just randomly take a Saturday and go explore downtown Austin. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that they're trying to clean their house and grocery shop and do all of the things, right? There's no time to be able to go and do those kinds of things. And we need to make sure that there's space for everybody to be able to enjoy the city.
I love that. Okay. Want to switch gears. I love when guests talk about something that they've done good. I like what we call as the good brag. And I want to hear, Tammy, do you have anything that you've done that you're proud of recently that you're willing to share?
So there's two stories. I don't want it to become cliche, but there is definitely some value to finding an opportunity to do something good, right? There's just something about that feeling that you get when you feel like you've done something good. And
agreed.
And I met with a young lady who works for an emergency foster shelter, Central Texas Table of Grace. We just had a wonderful connection of learning a little bit about the work that they're doing as an emergency foster shelter, which is very small. And I asked her back in early December, is there anything that you need for your kids at the foster shelter? And she said something, a lot of times these kids show up with nothing, right? And she said one of the things that they have found that the kids always really get excited about is to have a brand new set of pajamas. And it's something so simple, right? So I reached out to a group of ladies that I belong with out in Bastrop. It's the Lost Pines Ladies Club. And I just put it out there and I said, listen, Christmas is coming and we would like to be able to have these kids with a brand new set of pajamas. And it was the most amazing thing. We had our little Christmas social and 3 boxes filled with pajamas that I was able to hand off to them. And what a great thing to do. Yeah. It's something so simple, but it's just such a good feeling to know that somebody got to open up a brand new pair of pajamas and hopefully that made them feel really good.
You feel good, they feel good, and then the community. Right? You're building a sense of community, which we've talked on this show about the loneliness epidemic. Get together, do something good. It's a win-win scenario, and that's great. Carrying Hope, we've had them on here as well, and they create packs for children through foster care. The more initiatives for children and the youth in foster care, it's amazing. So exactly. That's incredible. And you have a second story.
And the second story.
Want to hear it?
So living out in Bastrop, what I've come to learn is that we also do have a serious crisis when it comes to cats and dogs being dumped everywhere. it has happened in the time I've lived there where I have had so many different dogs that have been dumped off at my property. And on December 1st, I was hosting a house concert, and 2 random dogs are in the backyard amongst all of the people getting ready for this house concert. And I'm like, who brought their dogs? Like, this is crazy. How did these dogs get here? No, they were dumped. And it was a little Catahoula and a little white fluffy dog. I secured them into a safe space and successfully rehomed the little white dog to somebody in Pflugerville and held on to that little Catahoula, both puppies. The Catahoula, I think, was between 3 and 4 months old. So,
Yeah, I mean,
14 weeks old.
Dumping puppies, it just blows my mind.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so reached out to my brother. They had just recently lost their dog. And I said, listen, this dog is amazing. And one of the needle in the haystack kind of dogs, like super smart, super sweet, such a cuddler. And so he and I ended up both driving to Tennessee to meet up with my dad, and I handed Finley, so I named him. Finley got handed off to my brother, and I now get daily videos, all the fun that Finley is having in Pennsylvania.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Get all those photos. That's great. I really encourage anyone, if you love dogs, you love animals, and you don't have any more capacity at your home, still engage with those organizations on social media. Just get more engagement, spread the message. I think that's fantastic what you did. I love when I hear those dogs are getting homes.
Yes, it is such a crisis.
Great. Okay, so now that you've been able to share your good brags, we want listeners to have a chance for some bragging rights. Of course, everyone can send their children. Your children get independence. You have a small ratio of 8-to-1.
Yes, exactly.
And they have a fantastic time. But also, you do have the teen leadership program. And I know at least 3 young men who have volunteered. They all had a fantastic time. They were freshmen in high school. So would love to just hear more about those opportunities that children, as they're growing into their teenage years, how can they help and how can they build those leadership skills and what can they do?
So funny enough, as I was coming here, one of my campers that I had back in 2016 reached out to me through Messenger because she graduates high school this year and she wants to work for us. And that's just one fine example of where, as you go through our program, and she said, is that you made such an impact on my life that I now want to make that same impact on kids as a leader. That's where that teen leadership program really does fulfill where, okay, you're done being the camper, but now let's give you a pathway that you can build into then being able to have a job when you get out of high school, right? Also, we have wonderful adult volunteers that come with us on our adventures because while our ratio is 8-to-1, and it gets even smaller when we have the teen leaders in there working with us, if we then have an adult volunteer, I'm all about the lower the ratio, the bigger the impact. Because each kid wants to be seen, wants to be heard. And the more adults or teens that can be in the mix of that to give them one-on-one attention, the better the experience is for everyone.
Yep.
And so
fun volunteer hours you get credit for. I know that, we don't want to tell young people, oh, you'll get credit for this, but sometimes you encourage them. You say you get some credit and then they show up and they have the time of their lives. They love it. They want to give back. It's kind of that incentive to go volunteer. And then it's kind of like giving up the phone, right? You give up the phone to go to a lot of these camps and they might complain at first. They're giving up their screen and then they leave the camp going, I didn't need my phone. I had a fantastic time, right?
And you just don't know how it's going to impact, right? You might think it's going to be one thing and then it turns out to be something completely different. There's 2 things that come to mind real quick. One is I had a little boy years ago and he was not easy. He was more of a struggle. But we went to an Alzheimer's unit to play board games with a bunch of senior citizens who were struggling with Alzheimer's. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. When we walked out, he turned to me and he said, when can we come back and do this again? That was the most fun I've ever had.
Oh. And you would have never connected the dots.
Never would have connected those dots. And that right there, again, that's the validation. We as adults don't always have the answers and understanding of what it's going to be that's going to create that moment for that child.
Just keep giving them experiences and figuring out what clicks. I remember my summer camps. One week I did baton twirl camp. One week I did karate. And I did these camps where I got to try different things. And then I figured out what really spoke to me, right? Same can be said about volunteering with nonprofits, right? Just get out there, get different experiences and figure out what speaks to you. And then also with your children, your own children. I don't think that his parents would have connected the dots that was something he would get excited about, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then one of our teens, I got to meet with a parent of one of our teens, and that parent has said to me, ATX Kids Club changed the trajectory of my teenager. My teenager didn't ever want to get out of bed, didn't want to go and do anything, came and volunteered with you for 2 weeks, and then was like, can we please keep volunteering?
Like, nothing better than hearing that, right? Nothing better for you, Tammy, right? You're just like, this is why I do it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And especially those teenagers who need so much validation in their worthiness in this world, right? Like they really need to know that
they're not going to get it on social media.
They're not. But you put them with a group of young children who think they walk on water, and nothing makes you feel better or more worthwhile to be existing in this world.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where the magic happens in that teen leadership program. Yeah.
And how many spots do you have for that each year?
There are 45 spots each summer for us to have teens involved with the program.
Okay. Sounds like a great program.
Thank you. We're excited.
Last thing that's top of mind, I know Amplify Austin is March 5th through 6th. I know there's a lot of nonprofits, but ATX Kids Club, I know that you're fundraising for something, right?
We are. So we're fundraising for a lot of our 2025 goals, but most importantly is we're trying to replace our minivan. So we had to sell our minivan. It was a 2005 with 265,000 miles on it. It was a great little van.
I'm sure it saw some glorious areas of Austin.
It did, but we need a new minivan. And so we're trying to at least raise a down payment because they're not cheap. So yes, we've got a $20,000 Amplify Austin goal where some of that money will go towards the down payment for a minivan. And that is, as you said, March 5th and 6th. And then if that's totally not your thing, April is our actual fundraiser, which is an Urban Quest fundraiser. It's a citywide scavenger hunt, riding on public transit, super fun.
What day is that?
It is Saturday, April 26th from 10 until 2.
A scavenger hunt.
So we give you riddles and clues and everything you need to know on how to traverse the city of Austin. So you get to do what our campers do.
Fun.
And it's 6-person teams with a little bit of competition in there to see who wins.
And do you pay for the scavenger hunt and that goes towards your fundraising?
Yes. Yeah. So it's $600 a team, which breaks down to $100 a person and includes breakfast, a t-shirt, the transit pass, all these things. Yeah. But the biggest fundraising part of that particular fundraiser is sponsorships.
Yes.
And so finding local businesses that would like to sponsor that event is really what's going to help us make sure that we're able to keep going through 2025.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, that's fun. April 26th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Go do a scavenger hunt. Get on the CapMetro with your children. Bring the whole family, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and have a good time. And then that van, donate to Amplify Austin. I know Nightlight Insurance is donating $1,000, which I'm really excited to put a little small dent in the fundraising effort. I really, really hope that you reach your goals.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, this has been great. This is awesome. Love it.
Thanks. Hey, listeners. That was such a fun conversation with Tammy. You can feel her passion for kids and the way she's creating opportunities for curiosity, adventure, and independence. Through ATX Kids Club, kids aren't just hearing about Austin, they are experiencing it. Hopping on public transportation, exploring hidden gems, and building confidence along the way. But here's the thing. They need our help to keep the adventures going. Right now, they're raising $20,000 to Amplify Austin to replace their aging van. While public transportation is a fantastic tool, some of Austin's best learning experiences are beyond CapMetro's reach. A new van will allow ATX Kids Club to take kids on even bigger adventures, opening up more opportunities for discovery, independence, and hands-on learning. Want to earn some bragging rights? I know you do. Here's how. Donate via Amplify Austin to help them secure that new van and expand their reach. Do you have a teenager you know? Their teen leadership program. It's a perfect way for teens to develop leadership skills while giving back. And if you're an adult, you can also volunteer. There are many opportunities to support their mission and make their experiences possible. So what's your good brag? Let us know how you're getting involved by tagging us on Instagram and Facebook at Escape Into a Cause or posting it to our Facebook group. Thanks to the Texas Stars Foundation, you might even win tickets. If this episode inspired you, share it, leave a review, and help spread the word. Next week, we're escaping into Atticus's legacy dog rescue. You won't want to miss it. Special thanks to Nightlight Insurance for making this podcast possible, and to Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios, Michelle Anderson at Pinkle Toast Photography, and Tim Nicholson for branding. See you next time as we escape into a cause.